More than 2,000 years ago, an emperor was buried with an army made of clay and armed with real bronze weapons. When that army returned to light, some of those blades still looked dangerous. So what exactly survived in that dark earth, and why? In 1974, farmers near Xi'an were digging a well when they struck something harder than soil. First came fragments, then a face, then rows of life-size soldiers standing in formation beneath the fields. It was not a tomb in the simple sense. It was an underground army, and these figures were not holding toy weapons. Archaeologists found bronze swords, spearheads, lances, arrowheads, and crossbow triggers. Real military hardware. Some pieces looked so well preserved that a powerful idea took hold almost immediately. Maybe the first emperor's craftsmen had discovered a secret that the rest of the ancient world never knew. But that mystery starts long before the farmers, and long before the burial itself. The story begins in 246 BCE. A young king of Qin took the throne, and almost at once work began on his mausoleum. That king was Yingzheng, the man who would later conquer the rival states of the Warring States period and, in 221 BCE, rename himself Qin Shi Huang, the first emperor of China. He did not think small. His empire was built through strict control, mass labor, and military force. His tomb complex followed the same logic. This was not just a grave. It was a whole buried world, built years before his death, meant to continue imperial order after life ended. And if an emperor expected to rule in the next world, he would need soldiers there too. By around 210 BCE, when Qin Shi Huang died, large parts of the mausoleum complex were in place. The Terracotta army formed one part of that huge project. Thousands of clay soldiers stood in battle formation, with officers, infantry, chariots and horses arranged as if they were ready for inspection. This matters because the army was not random decoration. It copied the shape of real power. The buried soldiers appear to reflect the military world that had helped Qin unify China. Their weapons did the same. Bronze arrowheads were bundled in groups. Crossbow trigger parts were made in large numbers. Swords and spearheads were fitted into a wider system of organized supply. So the first surprise is not that weapons were found at all. It is that the Afterlife army was equipped with objects close to the real thing. That raises the next question. If these were true weapons, how were they made? And how many hands did it take to arm an emperor below ground? The weapons buried with the Terracotta army tell us a great deal about the Qin state. Archaeologists have found thousands of bronze arrowheads, along with swords, lances, spearheads, and finely made crossbow triggers. These were not one-off luxury pieces. Many show standardization, the mark of a government that wanted output on a massive scale. Studies of arrowheads suggest organized production, almost like workshop cells working within a tightly controlled state system. Parts repeat. Measurements cluster closely. The same empire that standardized writing, weights, and roads also seems to have standardized Death's army. That image matters because it changes how we see the burial. This was not only a spiritual project, it was also a display of administration. The emperor's reach extended from living armies to buried ones. Even underground, order had to be counted, cast, fitted, and arranged. And yet one detail pushed the story from impressive to strange. When some of those bronze weapons came out of the soil, they did not look like relics turning to powder. They looked as if time had missed them. For years, visitors and readers heard a striking claim. The Terracotta army's weapons were still razor-sharp after more than 2,000 years. That phrase is memorable, but it needs care. Not every weapon survived equally well. Preservation varied. Some pieces were damaged, some were corroded, Some had lost wooden shafts, handles, wrappings, and fittings that once shaped how the weapons actually worked. Still, the core mystery is real. Many bronze objects did emerge in remarkably good condition, and some blades appeared unusually sharp or well preserved. That fed a popular explanation. Maybe Qin metalworkers had used an advanced anti-corrosion treatment, centuries ahead of its time. The key suspect was chromium. The idea was simple and seductive. Modern stainless processes use chromium. Traces of chromium were found on some excavated weapons. Therefore, perhaps the Qin had deliberately coated their bronze arms with a protective layer. It was the kind of theory that sticks. A lost ancient technology. A buried imperial secret. A chemical trick hidden in the tomb of the first emperor. But science kept digging, and the answer turned out to be less dramatic, and in some ways, more interesting. In the 2010s, researchers re-examined the old chromium explanation in detail. A major 2019 study argued that the traces of chromium on some weapons were probably not evidence of a deliberate anti-rust coating on the blades at all. Instead, the chromium likely came from lacquer. Many ancient weapons once included wooden shafts, handles, or fittings finished with lacquer, and that lacquer could contain chromium-bearing compounds. Over time, as organic parts decayed and objects rested together in burial conditions, traces could transfer or remain on nearby surfaces. In other words, chromium was present, but not necessarily as a protective treatment applied by some lost Qin chemical industry. This changed the mystery. The weapons were not preserved because ancient craftsmen had invented stainless bronze. The famous explanation was probably wrong. But removing one answer only sharpened the next question. If chromium did not save the weapons, what did? Why did so many bronze pieces remain in good shape while other materials in the pits, especially wood and lacquered parts, suffered badly? To solve that, the investigators had to look away from the forge and down into the soil itself. The newer explanation points to burial conditions. Researchers proposed that the local soil around the Terracotta army played a major role in preserving many bronze weapons. The earth in the pits was moderately alkaline, and those conditions may have slowed some forms of corrosion. Burial environment matters. Moisture, oxygen, salts, acidity, and contact with surrounding material can decide whether metal survives or decays. That also helps explain why preservation was uneven. Different objects sat in different microenvironments. Some remained protected, some did not. Some were buried with materials that changed local chemistry. Some were exposed to damage in antiquity when parts of the pits may have burned or collapsed during the chaos that followed the fall of Qin in 206 BCE. So the surviving blades are not proof of a single miracle process. They are the result of craft, alloy, burial chemistry, and luck working together over centuries. This may sound less romantic than the old chromium legend, but it gives us a more human picture. Ancient builders made excellent weapons. Tomb conditions preserved many of them unusually well, and modern people, seeing bright metal after 2 millennia, mistook a rare chain of circumstances for a forgotten super technology. One mystery remains: how battle-ready were these buried weapons when they entered the tomb? Some were certainly real weapons, not symbolic miniatures. Their materials, forms, and standardized production link them closely to the military world of Qin. But that does not automatically tell us why they were placed here in the state they were. There are several possibilities. The arsenal may have been intended to protect the emperor in the afterlife in the most literal sense possible. It may have been a realistic copy of the forces that secured his empire. Or it may have been a statement of power, a way to bury not only soldiers, but the image of total control. We should be careful here. The evidence does not let us measure the exact balance between ritual, propaganda, and practical function. The lost wooden parts also distort the picture. What survives in bronze is only part of what once stood in those pits. Still, the message is clear enough. Qin Shi Huang wanted eternity to look like empire. Rows of obedient soldiers, mass-produced weapons, a command structure frozen in earth. Even in death, he expected order to continue. But the sharp blades we admire today were not waiting for battle. They were waiting for discovery. The sharp weapons of the Terracotta army are fascinating, not because they prove an impossible legend, but because they reveal how many worlds meet in one burial pit. Imperial ambition, industrial-scale organization, funeral ritual, material science, accident, survival. A young king began building his tomb in 246 BCE. A conqueror unified China in 221 BCE. Around his death in 210 BCE, an army was sealed underground to serve him beyond life. Then the dynasty collapsed, the pits were damaged, and the earth closed over everything. More than 2,000 years later, farmers broke that silence. What came back into daylight was not a perfect, frozen moment. It was a fragmentary world. Clay soldiers without their full colors. Weapons without many of their wooden parts. A mystery partly solved, but not completely. We now know the old Chromium story probably misses the mark. We also know the truth is richer than the myth. These weapons survived because history is not only written by emperors and armies. Sometimes it is written by lacquer flakes, soil chemistry, and the slow pressure of packed earth. And sometimes the dead leave behind evidence sharp enough to cut through our favorite stories.